Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last year or so, I've been featuring each fille du roi, or king's daughter, and getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them, so we have a long way to go. Today, we are featuring episode 144, the fille du roi Jeanne Gilles. Before we begin, I want to show you ways that you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know: subscribe, like, and notify. And the next three are ways to help the channel grow: Ko-fi, Etsy, and Patreon. All are ways of showing your support. So I appreciate you checking it out. Let's get started, shall we? So today's episode is episode 144, Jeanne Gilles. It has not been requested by a viewer. It instead was brought to me as I continue the story from episode 143. But when I looked in my files, I did see one of my dear friends. It's also her great grandmother. So this is for you as well. So let's explore Jeanne's life. So Jeanne was born in 1648 in Paris, in the parish of Saint-Nicolas-des-Champs. Her parents were Pierre Gilles and Anne Nicolas, and the Catholic church that of Saint-Nicolas-des-Champs was built in the 15th century, and it's located on the Rue Saint-Martin in the 3rd arrondissement of Paris. And his current church was built between 1420 and 1480 and was enlarged in the 16th and 17th century. Now, the actual parish where she was, baptized would have dated from the 12th century as well. She was born in an area of Paris known as the 3rd arrondissement. Remember, I've told you that arrondissement is the way that Paris is laid out in a circle. And it's found on the right bank of the River Seine. It's referred to commonly as La Temple. This sector dates back to the Middle Ages, and it is actually the second smallest of Paris's arrondissements. Among the notable facts about this sector is that it's here where you can find the oldest surviving private house in Paris, built in 1407. Imagine that you could actually stand, in front of a house that Jeanne could have looked at. I just think that that's amazing. There's also an ancient Jewish quarter here, quartier, which dates back from the 13th century, and it's an important part of the Jewish history of Paris. So Jeanne would, after her father's death, embark on Les Filles du Roi program. She embarked on the ship La Nouvelle Franche, and she arrived July 30th, 1670. She had a dowry of about 300 pounds when she came over, so she was not without means. So the groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was François Fleury Dimitron, and he was born in 1631 in Ruelle, France, which is now known as Ruelle Malmaison. His parents were Simon Fleury and Marie Mouton. He is actually from Paris as well, but it's in the region called Île-de-France, and Ruelle is kind of like a suburb of Paris, and so you can kind of see where he's from, the Hauts-de-Seine, which is the blue section over there. It's actually famous for its Château de Malmaison, where Napoleon and his first wife Josephine lived. It was a resort of the kings during the 6th and 8th centuries. And in 1346, Ruelle was burned by the Black Prince, son of Edward III of England. In 1622, Christophe Perrault, a councillor of the Parliament of Paris, built himself a chateau at the site called Malmaison, which is House of Misfortune. Why you would name a house this, I have no idea. And of course, this is the church where he would have been baptized in, Francois, on the left side of your, I wasn't able to find as much information about the church, but I'm assuming it dates as well from a very long period. So Francois and Jeanne would actually get married in Saint-Augustin sometime in I believe around the 24th of August, 1670, so very shortly after she arrived. What we know about Francois, just to give you a little bit of perspective, is that he was in Quebec from at least 4 or 5 years before. He had entered into an attempted marriage contract with another fille du roi, Aimée Roux, but it was canceled. So he was a baker by profession. So I think that this is just what he came to New France for. I don't have any other information, but certainly if you have any, that would be phenomenal. So let's have a look at where they settled down. So they settled down in Saint-Augustin de Desmaures, the tiny community that it is. It's an interesting place because 17 filles du roi eventually settled here, which I find remarkable given the fact it's so small. Let's give you a little bit of a history of Saint-Augustin. In 1647, Jean Juchereau, Lord of Maure, is given the seigneurie that includes this small village. By 1668, the territory begins to be occupied. It was then called de Maure. By 1671, a community mill was established at Lake Saint-Augustin, led by the son of the original lord, also named Jean Juchereau de la Ferté. By 1685, Paul Augustin Juchereau de Maure becomes the third seigneur of this community. The name of the parish most probably comes from his first name, Saint-Augustin de Desmaures. By 1691, the establishment of this parish is recognized. Although there's no official documents that prove this date, it's the unofficial start of the parish. And at that time, there were approximately only 200 people that lived here. So it gives you some idea. I've kind of circled it where it is. This is a picture of the right on the river, if you like. And obviously the church didn't look like this in 1691, but it's a fairly vintage picture of the church. And then we have the 1681 census, which confirms that that's where they were. We have François Fleury, who's boulanger, which means baker, 50. I love when it proves the fact. We have Jeanne, his wife, who's 37, so 13 years younger than he is. Their children, François, Marie, Jeanne, François, and Joseph. I want you to note that there are two François. I've had viewers actually write me and say, oh, you made a mistake. No, they actually named children the same because sometimes they were known as François Joseph and Joseph François, and so they had their own kind of, naming patterns. They possessed one gun, 2 cows, and 10 arpents à valeur, so about 8 to 9 acres of land, which is very good for that time period. So let's see the family that they grew. So Jeanne and François eventually end up having 10 children. Jeanne, their firstborn, married twice but did not have any descendants. Marie married Jean Proux and had 4 children, all of whom survived. She then married Nicolas Bois and had 1 child who also survived. Françoise married Jean-Baptiste Robidoux and had 10 children, 7 of whom survived. François died at 2 years of age. Denis Joseph married Catherine Lontin and had 2 children, both of whom survived. Félix Angélix married Pierre Pimentin and had 2 children, both of whom survived. Anne would pass away in infancy. Jean-Baptiste married François Lognon and had 12 children, 10 of whom made it to adulthood. And then finally, René would pass away in infancy. François would die suddenly sometime before the 6th of January, 1688. Their last son, René, was born posthumously and would only survive for 7 days. So can you imagine the heartbreak that she had at that time? My heart ached when I read that. So let's see how she continues. About a year later, Jeanne would marry René Dumas, the Rencontre, who we got to know in episode 143. He was born in 1651 in Tours, France. His parents were Claude Dumas and Françoise Léger. And just to give you a recap of Tours, is part of the Centre Val de Loire in the department of Indre-et-Loire. There's about 136,000 people that live there. And Tours has existed since the Gallic times, as it was part of the Roman Empire during the 1st century AD. The church where Renee was most likely baptized is that of Saint Croix and can be dated back to the 11th century. This is the marriage certificate between Renee, the widow of our Fille du Roi episode 143, and Jeanne. And so they were married in Montreal in June of 1689. And let's see what happens to their family. So, yours, mine, and ours, 16th century style. We have 7 Jument children, 8 Fleury children, plus 1 additional child. They did have a child together named Louis Isaac that was born in 1690. I wasn't able to find any more information. Please let me know if you have it. Wanted to include it to continue the story. So, and that is an amazing kind of just merging of those families. So Jeanne would, deal with the death of a second husband. René would pass away sometime between 1699 and 1704. We do not have a death record. He is presumably buried with his first wife at La Prairie. By 1704, after the death of René, Jeanne would marry a third time to René Gilles de la Liberté, and he was born in 1648. They did not have any children together. This is their marriage record. They were married in Montreal. Jeanne would pass away at the age of 60 on September 24, 1708. So her and her third husband only had 4 short years together. She is buried at Notre Dame in Montreal. Here are some resources for further research. We have La Société des Filles du Roi, of which I am a member and the membership chair. Absolutely phenomenal website to be able to access a list of all of the Filles du Roi. Have a look at that. You don't have to be a member to check it out. Quebec Genealogical E-Society, wonderful society I belong to. It is a yearly dues, a yearly payment. We have Nos Origines, which is free, which is a fabulous kind of think tank. We have Genealogie Quebec, which I pay on a monthly basis and I'm happy to do. And then we have, which is for me, Ancestry Quebec, in a way. And then we have Migration, a free site, but I do donate to their cause. And then we have Facebook, Filles du Roi Descendants. All of these will help you in your research and to kind of network with others and possibly find cousins as well. So Jeanne would establish herself as really the primary matriarch of the Fleury family, which is a very, common name in Quebec. So we know that there are a lot of Fleuries. It's a very old family. And what she had only by 1729, 42 descendants. However, I suspect that the further generations increased that number. She was a lady from Paris who decided to come aboard and say, okay, what can I do? And she was able to endure the loss of 2 husbands and give birth to, a number of children and be able to take on the children of another lady. So I think she was truly a matriarch in many respects. And so despite the lower number of descendants as of 1729, her importance to Filles du Roi history is assured. So we thank her and we bless her memory. And until I see you on episode 145, I'll say au revoir for now.